Hey everybody, welcome back to Green Chat. My name is Cleeze, and today we're going to be taking, you guessed it, a closer look at Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. More in specific, we're going to be looking into more detail on the Dialord, Paladin, and Warrior that was recently debuted I hope that's right, in the newsletter put out by Visionary Realms, I think last week or very recently. So I've shifted. I was going to do Raid College or whatever the heck this week, but today we're going to keep it green and chatty. So with that, guys, let's get started. So hey guys, hope you're doing great. Before we get kicking into anything, this is a place where you guys can ask me questions. I give you my opinion to hopefully formulate your own on the upcoming MMO Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. With that as well, some upcoming things. So I did have an entirely different video planned out for this week. However, this came up and boom. Yeah, my schedule is really tight, so I only make it on the weekends and I have to really plan ahead. So hey, what do you know? So I was going to do a Raid College type thing. I haven't even named yet. I was going to name it right before I put the video out. But I have all the material ready and stuff like that. It looks pretty good. So hope you guys will enjoy that. Anyways, without further ado, let's crack into this. This is going to be covering the Dialord, Warrior, and Paladin. Muddyfeet recommended this in one of my comments. Most specifically, Muddyfeet said, question, we'd like to hear your view on tank reveals. How do you think they should be played? Are they two alike? Are they so different from each other that only one will be the preferred? So with that, let's begin this little escapade into the three tanks that is in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Alright guys, before we begin, I feel like it should be prefaced. I did say this is the three tanks that will be in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. However, there will be off tanks that could really fill the role as a tank, just not nearly as effectively, like the Ranger, potentially, or the Monk. That's all that's really coming off the top of my head right now, but those classes will be able to off tank or side tank, whatever you want to call it, or tank very trivial, you could say, content. So it's not like you are screwed if you don't have one of these players in the party. However, if you are raiding, you will want a Dialord, Paladin, or Warrior in your party. And not to say that healers will be struggling really hard with the Ranger and the Monk tanking on the easier content. It's just they can only do the easier stuff for the most part. You're running through the world, you're like, hey man, you want to group up and kill this orc camp? Yeah, sure, dude, I'll tank. No big deal if you don't have a Paladin, Warrior, or Dialord. But if you're like, yo, you want to run in that dungeon really deep and find out what's down there, you better bring a Paladin, Warrior, Dialord. Okay, I'm going to stop giving this example. Really terrible. Furthermore, while I'm going through this, I'm going to be going through the actual Dialord, Paladin, and Warrior and their debuffs revealed on the Pantheon newsletter, which links you to the classes page at pantheonmmo.com. So if you want to go there and follow along, do whatever you want to do, or you can just listen to me, however you want to roll it. But I will leave a link in the description to the Paladin, Warrior, and Dialord to at least go through it yourself, because I will not be going over every facet of those pages, because I feel like that would be a waste of your time, because it's a simple read. I mean, this is the shield bash, and the shield bash most complicated, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna butter this up. I'm just gonna give you my opinion and go through what I think is really standing out about each class and how it's pretty cool looking. All right, so in no particular order, we're going to start with the Dialord. The Dialord can be Dark Mirror, Human, Orga, or Scar. They're a tank utility class, and their combat resource is Essence. So, again, I'm not going to, just holy cow, whatever, but I'm just going to tell you what they do. Basically, in combat, Dialords will consistently generate Essence as a percentage of the damage they deal. They will also gain Essence based on the damage they take. So basically, they deal out damage, they gain a resource. They take damage, they gain a resource. They will then spend this resource to do amazing heroic abilities or very cool abilities or pretty plain old abilities. Basically, their ability spenders will use Essence, and then they'll have Essence builders. Also, taking damage will be an Essence builder. Interesting point, the available armor to the Dialords is cloth, leather, and mail. Why they list it like that is because in the beginning you're going to be in tattered rags, so you'll be wearing cloth that'll be like that across all tank classes, pretty much all classes in the game. So if you're a plate wearer or a mail wearer, you have to really earn that mail or plate, because it's kind of pristine. It's like a nice thing to have. It's not like, oh hey, look at that, I found this in the ditch, man. So like a nice big old breastplate. So basically their end gear is going to be mail. So their top tier best gear they can get to will be mail, probably because they're going to be more of like a free flowy, and that blood, man, it's got to soak through the mail, for them to absorb that essence. They also available weapons. This is interesting. One-handed edged weapons or two-handed edged weapons, and that's it. So they have to use edged weapons, one-handed, two-handed. They do get a critical strike chance bonus when wielding one-handed edge. They get a critical strike damage bonus when wielding two-handed weapons. Basically, if you guys are terrible at whatever that means, Critical strike chance, you know, like let's say you have 10% chance of critical strike. That means what, 1 out of every 10 swings you will crit. Now more than that will happen. Maybe 2 times out of 10 swings you will crit, hypothetically. Maybe even 5 times out of 10 you'll crit, so 50-50. Who knows? And then the damage you deal with your crits with 2-handers is increased. So if it was like a 2 times bonus, you know, that's what it typically is. But then when you throw in a 2-hander, it'll be 2.5 times bonus to the damage you deal with a critical strike. So what I would assume as you're leveling up, it's going to be more advantageous to use 1-handed weapons versus 2-handed weapons, because the gear giving you, I mean, the 2-handed only bonus to it is if you're already critting a lot anyways. So when you get higher level, your gear will give you more stats potentially and allow for you to do more, I don't know, damage that way, or it also builds up more essence because you're dealing more damage. Not really sure. Also, it gives you maybe more opportunity to have the mob parry you less or reposit you less if you're using a 2-handed edge weapon versus a 1-handed, or dual wielding. It looks like dual wielding is going to be a deal for these guys. So no shields. Doesn't look like any shields. So you're going to be dual wielding 1-handed swords, or you're going to be using a 2-handed edge weapon. Now I really like the 2-handed thing. I like the dual wielding. That's cool. So moving on from that. So after looking over the abilities for the Dire Lord, a couple examples would be like Grip of Torment. Infiltrate your enemy's essence and then turn it against them, obstructing any healing and benefiting that the enemy for the duration of the effect uses essence. And then laden blood. You will cause your enemy's essence to grow thick and heavy, weighing them down to the ground and preventing them from movement. So pretty much every single ability with the Dire Lord is focused around its essence, which is blood, which actually sounds pretty cool. So they also have something interesting, kind of like blood states, which would be like stances. They have Nightmare Blood, deal damage. The damage deal afflicts your enemy with palpable horror, converting X percentage of damage to your damage into bonus haste. Converting X percent of your damage into bonus haste. So, you know, if you do a certain amount of damage, you get haste off of that for some kind of buff for some point in time. And then they have Essence Leash. Your blood swells to the essence of enemies, increases your critical strike chance. Your critical strike draw out the essence of your enemy, healing you for X percent of damage dealt. Which seems kind of like a, if you will, tanking stance, maybe. I'm not really sure. And causes your blood to flow faster, increases, excuse me, this is torrential veins. You cause your blood to flow faster, increasing your health regeneration rate, and causes your essence vial to fill % times faster. So you get more spenders off of that. So basically, they have 3 different stances. One's like you get to get bonus haste, pretty much haste off your essence, and then you have a leech, and then you have this torrent vines, which makes your essence actually fill faster, so you can do more spenders. And all of their abilities are really focused around this essence, like I said. And it seems like kind of a in the throw kind of a class. Like really jump into the group of mobs and just go nuts. Like you have a bunch of AoE stuff where your blood just sprays everywhere and damages people, and you have ways of locking them down. The more damage you're taking, the more damage you'll be able to dish out, the more healing you'll be able to do yourself. It's kind of one of those classes. Now, I'm going to wait till the end before I kind of compare the classes to each other, because I feel like that's more appropriate. But that's pretty much the Dire Lord. The Dire Lord is what you would consider, many games have classes like this, but this one seems, you know, specific to Pantheon. They're going with their own role, and it's the Dire Lord. And I like it. Sounds really cool. I don't think it'll be for me, just because, but it's pretty cool. And again, I could go through all the abilities. I really don't feel like that'd be cool for you guys. So definitely head over to the website at pantheonmmo.com, classes Dire Lord, or excuse me, /classes/Dire Lord to check this out. And now we're gonna move on to the Paladin. Let's move on to the Paladin. You know, let's move on over to the Pally. Let's move it. All right, so next up, guys, we got the Paladin. You know, and the Paladin can only be a dwarf and human. Darn, that's it. Dwarf and human. Maybe later on they'll expand on that. But hey, whatever, no big deal. But basically, the Paladin is a plate-armored melee specialist imbued with celestial power at its core. So hey, get ready. That sounds pretty nifty, huh? In addition, by shedding the dogma of their clerical order, they have devoted themselves to the study of arms and armor, giving paladins renowned abilities in defensive combat. Perhaps the most ironically, the paladin is driven by an unquenchable hatred for undeath and the flame they have stoked into this ceaseless pursuit. Dang, paladin sounds serious. Maybe that's why it's only human and dwarf. Thus, a paladin is never more fierce than when they stand face to face with undeath. All right, so hey, you know what? Paladins will be a tank. They will be a tank utility. There won't be any like, you can't jut off and be like, I'm gonna be a DPS paladin, man. No, they are a tank. paladins or tanks. That's it. So the combat resources for the paladin will be Wrath and Reckoning. In combat, paladins will gain Wrath as they take damage from enemies. Paladins will also gain armor of Wrath based on their constitution every time the group slays an enemy. I'm not sure if that's a constitution of like their stat constitution or their life. We'll have to figure that out. One day we'll know. Also, certain abilities will increase a paladin. I'm pretty sure their stat for life will be stamina. So maybe it is the actual life you have in your health bar. You will gain a Wrath based on that in some percentage. Also, certain abilities will increase the paladin's Wrath by a certain amount. When used, other abilities will have a Wrath cost in order to be performed. So basically, a paladin will increase its Wrath by doing certain abilities. Every time an enemy is slain, it'll do a check against your constitution, like D&D here, to gain Wrath as well. Also, paladins will gain Wrath as they take damage from enemies. So basically, you kill something, you get Wrath. You do an ability or certain abilities, you get Wrath, and you take damage, you get Wrath. A lot like the Dire Lord to a degree, but you know what? It kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm reading through here. There's only 3 tanks, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be wildly different as far as the way the resources come in, because I feel like they always try to do that with tanks, and it really kind of dumbs them down. Like, this tank is super lame because they try to get super creative with its resource management program or the way that it's all like set up. And it just, just make it simple and then make the class's abilities more engaging versus its resource system. Does it have to be that different? Anyway, so I kind of like where they went with this. I mean, it is totally different. Not really. It is different, but not totally different. It is different. In addition to Wrath, paladins will also have granted up to 3 points of Reckoning, represented in the UI by a row of 3 suns. Filling one at a time as Reckoning points are accumulated during combat, paladins will be able to use these Reckoning points to perform heroic feats during battle. So I guess that's one big difference between at least the Paladin and Dire Lord, which we'll dive into later. But basically, they'll gain Wrath. They'll gain Wrath by taking damage, killing enemies, and then also certain abilities will increase the Paladin's Wrath. In addition, they'll accumulate Reckoning, which is represented by 3 suns, over the duration of combat. So we don't really know how you're going to get these Reckoning points. Maybe it's just something that fills up over time, kind of like maybe like a super that's building up, and you get it for participating in combat at some point. It fills up like a gauge, depending on what you actually do. So, available armor, all armor including full plate mail is available to the Paladin. The available weapons is one-handed edged, one-handed blunt, two-handed edged, two-handed blunt, no shield. So you can be going two-handed style or one-handed style. I mean, maybe you will be able to use a shield. Maybe they're not considering that a weapon. I don't know. Because the picture has a shield on it. What the heck, man? They made this art a long time ago before they came up with this idea. So I've always envisioned at least Paladins using like these humongous two-handers, like big hammer, or like a big great sword or something. That's just my personal perception. There's been other times though where Paladins have wielded like a sweet shield with a mace. So we'll see. It's gonna be up to you guys, whatever you feel like is the deal there. Of course, Paladins again with the abilities, I'm gonna kind of understand. Zim through them. Just give you a couple examples. So Wrathful Aegis. This one, you radiate celestial flames that burns and laps at your enemies, generating X hate every second for all enemies within Y meters of you, generates Wrath. So Paladins look like they'll be amazing at doing AoE tanking. Basically, the mobs roll out and they get dirty with it, which is pretty stinking cool. Now, with the blood, the different type of blood thing that the Dire Lord had, the Paladin will have Vengeful Hymns, Hymns of Devotion. All of your direct healing abilities will have a small heal over time component added to them. That's if you're in the Hymn of Devotion. If you're in the Hymn of Justice, 50% of the Wrath you spend will be refunded when your damage or healing abilities critically land. 50% of the Wrath you spend will be restored. That's nice. Hymn of the Stronghold, your group will receive X% of your overall armor class added to their own. So, pretty nifty-gajifty. They have also something called Evensong, an ancient hymn that empowers your Paladin, amplifying their next ability when they use it. Glory, let's give you a couple of these examples. Glory and honor. The healing is applied to you as well. So you heal somebody, it also is applied to you as well. Miraculous Shimmer heals of the group member for heals the group member for X% of their missing health. Pretty nifty. Atone, resurrect allies will have their health and mana restored. Arcing Light, jump to all group members before fading. Living Light, damage all enemies within X meters of you. So that is also pretty sweet. Now, again, this is not all the abilities I can have, and the Dire Lord was the least fleshed out page that I came across. So, take that for what you will. I went through the melee abilities. I didn't see anything too crazy on mobility. That was the one thing that the Dialord didn't really ever fleshed out was a lot of melee abilities, but it looks pretty average. It looks like the Paladin is going to be very strong at dealing with a horde of enemies and being very strong at healing. Also kind of hints at maybe there'll be battle reses because, you know, you've got resurrected allies will have more of their health and mana restored. Why would you need that? Unless you're just trying to rush to get back in, but that's a tone. And that's a special ability that they use only to apply their next ability. It seems like, why would you even have that in there if it wasn't able to use during combat? So potentially that's something you can do. And yeah, basically a lot of, you imbue your shield. Oh yeah, so they can use shields right here, Light Guard. You imbue your shield with Social Light, increasing your chance to block for a short time. If using two-handed weapon, this ability will increase your chance to parry. While Light Guard is active, your blocks and parries will stun the attacking enemy. So, that's so funny, I just read that with the shield. So yeah, so basically it doesn't specify. Available weapons is only weapons, obviously not armor. So all armor, including full plate mail, must mean, including shields, they must, you know, must be in there. Maybe that means the Dialord can use a shield as well. Super likely. I don't see why not if that's the case. And then you got some healing abilities here. You got Oath of Flame, a swift burst of celestial flame that lightly heals your defensive target. And then Living Light. You send forth flames of social light all around you, healing all members of your group. Uses 1 reckoning point. So that's pretty much the Paladin. I know I just kind of zipped through it. Again, at the end, I'm going to really what I'm more interested to do is kind of cross compare these classes and give you guys my take on that, because you can read this for yourself and see what you think. There's nothing really that jumps out at me as something that would be controversial. Besides the Paladin looks freaking sweet. Excuse my language. Shoot, I usually try to keep this channel very, very appropriate. But yeah, so the Paladin looks pretty awesome. Definitely going to be more of the AoE control, like I said. Healing is strong. High armor class, and they can deal with a mob of enemies. Looks pretty easily. Like if that's what you know, if that's your jazz, you can get nasty with it. You can, looks like you can tank for days. And then, and you know, gaining threat also with overhealing is also very strong. So if you, I would expect that to be in Pantheon Rise of Fallen. Potentially, you know, this was an EQ a lot, and basically a lot of the games out there, you can pull a group of mobs. Once you are activated in combat, you can blow a group heal spell, and you'll overheal the entire group and just absolutely rip threat off everything because you just overhealed the jonkers out of everybody because nobody's even engaged in combat yet. I mean, they have technically, but that's one thing that's really always strong about these classes like this as Paladin tanks, or tanks that can heal for that matter in any regard. But yeah, let's move on to the Warrior. And let's keep this train going. Yo. Okay, we're on to the Warriors. So the Warrior can be the Archai, Darkmere, Dwarf, Elf, Halfling, Human, Ogre, and Scar. Clearly, it's not hard to be a Warrior in this world, where it is hard to be a Dialord or a Paladin. Sorry, Warriors. So as you would expect, the Warrior is super sword and board-y looking. But they can also wield every single weapon in the game, which is super cool. So much more than a soldier or mercenary, the Warrior seems to defy the limits of physical strength, ability, and resilience. However, she, because only she's can be warriors, is not content with fortitude alone, but refines her mind as well, becoming a master strategist amidst the mayhem of battle. Don't worry, warriors can also be male. I guarantee it. So warriors have battle points. Warriors accumulate up to 5 battle points represented in the UI by a row of 5 shields. Filling one at a time as battle points are accumulated during combat, warriors will then be able to use these battle points to perform heroic feats during battle. Also, warriors will have resilience. This one's pretty longly worded, but basically warriors will, instead of building up a resource to spend, warriors are going to be building up resilience. And this is where I think it's going to get kind of interesting. So besides their amazing armor and gear and all that stuff and all their abilities, warriors will build up resilience, which will reduce their damage incoming to them. Now, when they start combat or they are out of combat, they potentially will have 0 resilience, and they'll use abilities to build this up. And it looks like it's something that will constantly fall off. Maybe you take damage and it removes some resilience, so you're constantly have to building it up. Maybe. We'll have to see. Kind of what it looks like to me. It builds up and it breaks down, and you build it back up constantly. So it's some kind of presence on yourself that is resilience that maybe cushions blows, which is pretty interesting. Maybe it's just totally like, takes a percent of damage off incoming. I don't know, but that incoming damage that it took off is then absorbed by the resilience, and then that goes down. We'll have to see. We will have to see, guys. Available armor. All armor, including full plate mail, warriors gain a 20% bonus to their overall armor class through the armor proficiency scale. All weapons, though warriors are most suited at using shields in their offhand, with several of their tanking abilities requiring shields. So, looks like sword and board is the way they're rolling for these homeboys, which is cool. I really love sword and board warriors. It's just always interesting to me. And now one thing about warrior, some of the abilities here, if you like to be a little bit mobile, it looks like warriors would be a little bit mobile than the other two guys. One close the gap is one of their abilities. You leap to your enemy's location up to 8 meters away. I'm assuming it's 8 meters. Only usable in combat. Grants 1 battle points. Nice, nice. Storm, you charge at an enemy with your furious speed, stunning them briefly. Only usable out of combat. Grants 1 battle point. Nice. Battering ram. You summon your immense physical strength and rush forward, breaking through certain barriers in an environment that have grown weak and unstable. Jabba has mentioned this also with the environment and stuff like that. And this is one thing that they've clearly here that the warriors can do. They can break through barriers that somehow may change the environment to make it more strategically advantageous, like worth doing on your warriors. So bring a warrior to break down those barriers, man. The higher your strength, the more types of barriers you will be able to break through. I've got no idea what that means, besides obviously what that means. But that's interesting that if you don't have a warrior at all, how much harder would that make it? How much interesting does that make it for you to bring a warrior? Who knows? Then you got War Hero. You rush into the location of your group members, rescue them from imminent danger, transferring a portion of the enemy's current hate towards them onto you. If your charisma is above a certain threshold, the group members' actions will generate less hate for that short time. So we're going here. Warriors are super mobile, like almost all of their, that's just their featured abilities. I mean, those are pretty cool, but yeah. And then let's go into these little guys here. These are the battle formations. This is much like the other classes. With the Dire Lord, it was the blood stuff, and then with the Paladin, it was the hymn, I believe. With the warrior, it's going to be the formation. So you have conquest. Formation boosts the melee and spellcasting speed for your group by a small amount. And you have regroup. The regroup formation boosts your group's movement speed slightly and refreshes all your cooldowns and your defensive targets uses 1 battle point. These all use 1 battle point, by the way. There is a caveat though. Usable when an active enemy enters the fleeing state is with conquest. Boosts all your speed and your movement and stuff like that. So if something's fleeing from you, you can use conquest. Usable when a member of your group dies is regroup, and that's where you reset all your cooldowns and group's movement speed is boosted. And then you have unyielding. Usable when you are in active combat with 3 or more enemies. The unyielding formation boosts the armor class of all group members, transferring X of all damage taken by the group to the warrior while active, and restores 1 point of your resilience each time you slay an enemy. Uses 1 battle point. So yeah, then they have war banners, which is pretty cool. Obviously you can get where that's going. You throw down some banners. I'll give you one example. The Shield Man's banner itself increases the damage reduction of your shield block ability. So you can, it's Banner of Onslaught, Havoc, Rallying Banner, Challenges banner increases the group's regeneration rate for the melee class in your group. Increases the resource regeneration rate for the melee guys. Self causes your resilience to replenish automatically at a rate determined by your constitution. Enemies, your attacks generate additional hate on enemies in range of this banner. So pretty complicated tooltips here, guys. Getting pretty specific. Now that's another concern reading through all these abilities. I feel like a lot of these will probably change and get honed out at some point because their tooltips are pretty complicated, and this looks like a lot to keep track of as far as, but hey, maybe that's what they're going for. It's a complicated game. There's going to be a lot of different, and again, you're getting a ton of abilities on these pages, but you can only use like 8 at a time, which is pretty cool. And these are the, at least these are like the class condition type things. Like banners are going to be probably not tied to your main abilities. Maybe they will. And then battle formations is something specific you can do. It's part of your featured abilities, not so much your melee abilities are what you'll be spamming or going through as far as like a rotation or priority goes. And then they get simple stuff like taunt, shield block, angering blow, strike your enemy with provoking manner. Make them angry. While angry, your attacks will generate additional hate. Dang. Shoulder crash. Man, cool. Shield Slam. So yeah, shoulder crash. So slam your enemy with a vicious close quarter attack. If your enemy is at 30% or less, you will gain the upper hand, restoring some of your resilience and increasing the strength by 20 of your overall health for a short time. You know what's kind of neat about these abilities is you can really use these to play to your advantage. Like let's say you're doing some type of very challenging encounter, and you can use this shoulder crash, for example. If you had adds, you could switch to an add, shoulder crash really quick to keep giving you that 20% to your strength and resilience and health over time for a short time. That'd be kind of nice. That would really set apart certain players as far as using these classes, which I think is really neat. And I know that sounds simple, but a lot of people just don't think of that stuff. Shield Slam, Wall of Shields. This is kind of interesting. Wall of Shields, link your shields together with another warrior in a group or raid, and incite all enemies within 12 meters radius to attack both of you for a duration of the Wall of Shields. For the duration of the Wall of Shields, enemy damage will be mitigated using both warriors' combined resilience. Both warriors will take the same damage per hit after mitigating while the effect lasts. Uses 3 battle points. Dang! Strike of Breaking, a fierce, well-placed strike that lowers your enemy's physical mitigation. 1 battle point. So that's the melee and the featured. I know I just kind of breezed through it. But yeah, that's the Warrior, Direlord, and Paladin. Now I'd like to compare them, at least with my opinion, and see what you guys think. And let's move on to that. And apology guys if I seem like I spent more time on one class than the other. Really the site is more fleshed out in the Warrior's direction, and middle ground is the Paladin, and then at least information would be the Direlord. Personally, with tanks go, I love Paladins, I love Direlords, and I love Warriors. Lately Warriors have been getting really boring for me because I've played a Warrior for my entire life, but it's really close to my heart, you know, just Warriors, man. Just the whole concept of Warriors really when I say boring, that's incorrect. I'm not sure what the word is for it. Maybe I've become at peace with my warrior soul. Not really sure what you want to call it. However, let's compare these guys. Now, I'm going to just go through what I think the strengths and weaknesses of each of them are, and you can see what you think. So, I feel like the Direlord is going to be super strong. Reason being is just the way that they'll scale with gear. They'll probably scale better than the warrior, and they'll scale better with the Paladin, because they'll probably deal the most damage. This is just a guess. The most damage of all three in any situation, in an AoE situation, and not an AoE, you know, single target situation. However, their health will be way more spiky than the other two. So in the beginning of the, day, when you're pretty under geared, especially for whatever content you're doing, you're gonna have a harder time as a Direlord potentially. But with the payoff of that is, as time goes on, you will likely get stronger and stronger and stronger, because you probably will scale the best with gear. Reason for that is the way that their mitigation works. It's based off of how much damage they do to get health back, and then their armor will also reduce incoming damage. And as content increases, the only way for that class to do better is to do more damage to get more health back, potentially. Depending how really they might, tweak it here and there, but that's kind of how that class works. There's other classes like this out there in MMOs that work similar to the Direlord right now. I'm sure y'all know what I'm talking about, and they are OP as banana cakes at certain points. And in the beginning, they're not that great, but later on, they can fill the role of like 5 tanks. It's crazy how strong this type of play gets. Now, it can be challenging to pull that off for some people. I don't know why. I've personally never played a class like the Direlord or anything like it, but certain people struggle with the concept because it is a bit of a meta class, and I don't even want to get into what meta means right now. But basically, like for the simple context of what this is, meta is something that you learn about your class, not in the game, that improves yourself in the game. There's many other definitions of meta, but as you're progressing through your gear, what do you focus on? Crit at this point? Or do you focus on, like just stacking straight health? Do you focus on like just straight damage, like guaranteed % damage? What do you focus on? Do you use two-hander? Do you use 2 one-handers? Do you one-hander shield? Things like that will drive really who bleeds out of the pack, no pun intended, for the Direlord at the higher level of play. Now, in any play, I should preface this as well before I even started this. If you're just playing these classes, play whichever one you like better. There's not going to be a situation where one really jumps out like, oh man, we need this guy or that guy. I don't think they're going to go for that. And MMOs lately just really haven't been finding that to be the case. Usually if you're there and they need a tank, they'll take you. I mean, I don't want to say they, but I mean, VR is, I mean, in the past, any tank can fill the tanking role. Now, if they did it great, sure, some did it better than others, but every tank was able to really pull it off. And I think the Warrior and the Paladin and the Dire Lord will be the same. But at the get-go, I think the Dire Lord will be the weakest, the Paladin will be maybe the strongest, and the Warrior will be somewhere in the middle. And I think that will be similar to the player. But let's get with Dire Lord here. Let's finish off the Dire Lord little round cake. And so yeah, I think Dire Lord will deal the most damage. Also potentially has the maybe for the skill ceiling, maybe the highest skill ceiling of the 3 classes as far as how hard it is to play the class, because a lot of the tanking, or a lot of what you do tanking, is tactics and technique, yes, but it's also how you gear yourself. And a lot of the times you can't just go look this stuff up online. They can come up with like the basic, the basic meta. Again, I'm going back to that phrase, but they really can't help you out through the progression of your character unless it is that streamlined, which I think Pantheon will not be the case, or that won't be the case of Pantheon. So let's move on to Paladin. So the strength of Dire Lord would be the amount of damage it does AoE damage, does great healing of itself. It's very self-reliant, not so exterior reliant. And but it doesn't have a lot of abilities that these other classes have, but that's really its strengths. Now the Paladin is going to be an amazing healer. It's going to be able to, if something's going wrong in the encounter, a Paladin potentially can spin that around. It looks like they can heal and resurrect people on the fly in combat. They can also tank a ton of adds, and it looks like they're going to be very resilient to do that. The Paladin's health chunk, or the way their health's going to work, it looks like it's going to be the most smooth. Because it's guaranteed. There's nothing that they can do to really help themselves besides basic abilities to help themselves mitigate damage. The damage mitigation is going to be pretty defaulted, so the incoming damage to them is going to be very steady, and that's usually always a thing with Paladins. I don't know why, but yeah, incoming damage is going to be very steady, and their outgoing damage is going to be probably substantial, but not anywhere near the Dire Lord, but maybe will spike at times. However, in between their abilities, it'll probably be pretty mediocre. However, their threat will be high because they'll also be casting heals, or be able to cast heals and deal damage at the same time. And I think that will be the trade-off there, is it'll be a stable tank, so reliable, so you can remove RNG from the picture potentially, and very supportive of the group and able to turn encounters around depending on what's happening. So what a Paladin would be really great for is, for instance, progression. Is they will probably be the strongest tank out of the gates. That's my opinion. But out of the gates, when you all level up to the highest level first, you all have the same type of junky gear you might get for the dungeons. You're like, let's go try this first major big boss guy. Paladin will probably be your go-to tank in that situation. Not to say the Dire Lord or Warrior won't be able to pull it off. It's just there'll probably be more Paladins walking around going, hey man, I'm way cooler than you. But that doesn't mean you'd only want to bring a Paladin and like 5 Paladins, Want to bring a Warrior or Dire Lord. There'll probably be reasons for that. But again, yeah, their damage is another thing. So damage, your tanks are going to have to deal damage. They're going to have to be damage dealing monkeys, and the Paladin is just probably going to lack there until later on. And later on, their damage probably won't even come comparable to, it'll be comparable, but maybe not as comparable to the Warrior or Dire Lord. Okay, and then the Warrior. So, we go over the Dire Lord, go over the Paladin, I'll get to the Warrior. The Warrior's really great, in my opinion. The Warrior's the best. That's it. That's all I have to say about them. Now, I think the Warrior's great if its mobility is strong. They have a lot of mobility in their skill set, it looks like. However, who knows if that will get negated by any speed increasing effects. If it does, man, that's going to be stinky. Who knows how those are going to affect us in combat, like Spirit of the Wolf and stuff like that, any kind of movement increase, but we'll have to see. Also, the Warrior resilience really kind of bothers me in one way or the other. It might make me feel way better or worse, depending on how much resilience actually affects the incoming damage you're receiving from extremely hard blows. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be one thing, like on the pull, the mob's coming at you, the Warrior's going to be the weakest at the get-go. Maybe not, 20 minutes, excuse me, not 20 minutes, but like a couple minutes into the fight, he may have taken way less damage than the other guys because of resilience, but the times where it mattered, where it really was intense, he wasn't able to get the resilience there, so that would really kind of play towards the harder side of the class. That's what makes the class challenging, versus the Dire Lord's kind of its meta, and then the Paladin's kind of its, You know, just kind of the middle of the road, guys, middle of the road. Keep things smooth and cool. But that's, yeah, kind of one of those other guys for the warrior. The warrior is usually going to be a more challenging class because it's just the way it plays out in most games. But we'll have to see where Pantheon really takes it. So far, it looks like they're kind of making the warrior be a mobile, gonna save you, gonna save that guy's kind of day. So if you want to be the hero, consider playing a warrior. Yeah, so to summarize, the Dire Lord is going to probably deal a ton of damage. Also will be the hardest to really progress yourself in, potentially. If you're kind of going solo at it, if you're with a solid group, you know, all the power to you. It'll also potentially have the most ability to be the underplayed class, like play the worst. Like the skill floor could potentially be very low for the Dire Lord. What skill floor means is how bad a bad player could make a class play. Like certain classes like a Paladin, if you push 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you could perform average or just below average. But if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Dire Lord, you're going to die in 2 seconds. Like the player's mistakes are so much more present than other classes. Same thing with the warrior a little bit. The warrior, that's why they call Paladins the face roll class, right on the keyboard. Same thing with the warriors. Warriors also probably be a little challenging, a little lower skill floor, a little higher skill ceiling than the Paladin. Maybe not higher than the Dire Lord. We'll have to see. They'll probably do middle of the road damage. So it's probably gonna be Dire Lord. I'd expect Dire Lord to do the most damage, then Warrior, then Paladin. Then Paladin does the most healing, which is gonna be super beneficial. It looks like, especially in a game like this, like super beneficial. Also battle reses and stuff like that. That just seems crazy. And then the Warrior will be able to specifically save certain people, and then it looks like the Dire Lord's going to be able to deal with certain circumstances maybe better than the other two as far as being self-reliant. So it's kind of an interesting twist, or an interesting dynamic to say the least. I like the way that they really play against each other, and for each little like plus on one, you always have a minus on the other, and it seems so far remarkably balanced is the way Chris Perkins has put these classes together and displayed them to us. So I'm very excited. If I had to pick one, let's do that. If I had to pick one, I definitely wouldn't play the Paladin because middle of the road classes are usually they're very strong. Like they're always very strong. The Paladins are just always strong, and the way they're taking them here, it looks like they're going to keep that stereotype alive and make them very strong. But they're usually not very very engaging. They're very predictable. Like, oh, I'm gonna die, or oh, I got this, or just like there's nothing you really do that just like, oh my gosh, you saved the day. It's very like a blanket class, like or maybe maybe you did save the day. They'd be like, wow, great job, but it just doesn't feel, you don't have that like that boom, that like boom to boom. I don't even know what you want to call it, but like get your heart racing kind of moment. It's just very, very easy to read and predictable where the class takes you in combat. So yeah, I probably wouldn't play Paladin. Dire Lord seems interesting to me, but I'm a stickler for plate armor and two-handed weapons, which they can use two-handers, but sometimes I want to use a hammer or something, So maybe I'll play a Paladin, because I'll play hammer, right? But yeah, I'd have to go with the Warrior. Minus all the negative things I said about them. That's just, I guess that's my character flaw is the Warrior seems the most dynamic as far as what it can do. I love mobility. It's got that mobility in there, so it's probably going to feel really cool to play, and that's what's important to me. You got to enjoy what you're doing and have fun doing it. And then no matter how terrible any tank is, if you are a good player, you have a good character behind that player, like you in real life, you can get yourself into groups, hands down. So that is my round out of the 3 tanks and their strengths and weaknesses. And they're all pretty close. The only concern I have across the board is potentially the resilience. That's it. That's the only worry I got, because in the past I've seen that type of mechanic at play, and it really hurts the warrior in progression, which really puts a bad taste in people's mouths, I guess, and they don't even understand why it's there. You could be in the most amazing warrior ever and actually play correctly and be amazing at it, and people are like, yeah, we don't want a warrior. We're just going to take a Dire Lord and a Paladin today. Thank you. Have a good day. So we'll have to see with that. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's it. The Warrior, the Dire Lord, and the Paladin. Class D butts. Alright guys, and that is my review of the tanks in Pantheon Rise of Fallen, the Paladin, the Warrior, and the Dire Lord. Definitely let me know your concerns about these classes in the comments below, because I'd be interested to hear. And also, hey, what tank would you play? If you're going to be a tank guy, if you're a tanky up dude, which one really jumps out at you is really cool? I mean, all three of them sound pretty awesome to me. There's not that much info on Dire Lord, but hey, you know, hey, they're coming out with more. And sorry if I seemed a little off. Like, I got, you know, it's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, guys, whoever's a father out there. But yeah, I had a really heck of a busy weekend and got to this video late, so I think I'm coherent. But if I'm not, if something's like, what is going on with this guy? Is he talking in tongues? Like, I apologize. I tried to keep it together. I'm just going to keep any weird moments in there when I do my recording, but we'll see. We'll see, guys. We'll see. So, hey, guys, if you liked what you saw, consider liking and subscribing to get notifications for future content I upload. I just realized right there I also missed my story time. It will be in next week's episode. Story time is gonna, I love story time, so it's gonna keep going, but this week, sorry, no story time. And guys, if you have any comments for me, please leave them in the comments below, and I will address them as soon as I can. I really appreciate you guys' comments. Last video had tons of comments, and I really appreciate that. So that's it, guys. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you again really soon.